Hello and welcome back to Too Many Books. My name is Sean, and today I'd like to talk to you about The Ocean at the End of the Lane, a novel by Neil Gaiman. This was his last novel as of 2025, published back in 2013. Given all the controversy around him, I don't know if he's going to publish any further novels. I mean, he did publish Norse mythology after this, but that's a collection of short stories, technically. So I'm going to do a book comparison video showcasing the many different editions of this title. There are more than just the three I show before you here. But a couple of quick disclaimers. First and foremost, I owned all of these editions prior to the accusations surrounding Neil Gaiman. So, you know, I know some people... So if you are able to separate the art from the artist, that's amazing. You can find all of these editions on the secondary market. If you wanted to pick up a copy, and that, you know, the money from that wouldn't go directly to Neil Gaiman. I don't want you think like, oh, this bastard's supporting Neil Gaiman. I mean, no. I mean, I try to separate the art from the artist, and admittedly, this was one of my favorite novels, which you can probably see from all the various editions that I'll be showing here. But I did want to point that out, that I had purchased all of these prior to me being aware of the accusations. And this is also not a be-all, end-all of all the different editions. You can find other editions out there. But I believe I have all of the small press and limited editions covered here with one little caveat. But let's dive in. I'm going to give you kind of publication background of The Ocean at the End of the Lane, kind of a little timeline here. Starting with the original trade release from William Morrow. Now, this is technically a novel, but it's a very, very short novel. One could even say it's a long novella. The original publication here from the U.S. is from William Morrow in a very, very small volume. Nothing too fancy here. It's not illustrated by any means. This is a first edition that's signed by Neil Gaiman from back in the day. The U.S. edition has these nice deckled page edges, which, you know, I'm a big sucker for deckled page edges. But even back in the day, they were kicking things off with some limited editions, starting with the UK and US. Both of them had limited editions. Starting, of course, with the US, which had this guy, William Morrow again. Of course, nice little slipcase for it with a little die-cut slipcase. Now, this one is illustrated, and it's surprisingly heavy for the size of this book. This one is illustrated by Dave McKean, who is a regular contributor to Neil Gaiman works. Now, there's 2,000 signed and numbered copies of the U.S. edition, but there's technically another 250 beyond that. Subterranean Press tried to get the rights to this novel back in the day. They were kind of successful. They didn't necessarily have their own edition, but Morrow did do another 250 of this edition with, I don't even think it has Subterranean Press on the spine. I think it just says on the signature page that there's 250 for Subterranean Press. But I believe everything else is exactly the same. Now, this one does have, because of the paper stock here, which is kind of a glossier, almost photo paper, it is a heavier volume compared to the other ones, but features all sorts of little illustrations from Dave McKean. Not your, traditional illustrations by any means, depicting what's going on in the scene, but a lot of ocean life and still life, wildlife, all picked up in Dave McKean's way, or just straight up photos. Dave McKean doing all sorts. There's a lamprey there. Those creepy little suckers. Anyways, Ocean at the End of the Lane is the story of an unnamed protagonist reflecting. He returns to his hometown as an adult and starts reflecting upon his childhood there, in particular one summer where he befriended the neighbor's kid, Letty Hempstock, and his adventures with Letty over the course of that summer, as they basically accidentally bring an evil into the world, and then the actions of them having to defeat that evil. There's a nice Dave McKean illustration there. It's very much kind of in the same tone as Coraline. Coraline's usually my go-to for the tone of this one, except whereas Coraline was advertised as a book for children, this one is not. This one is just definitively advertised as an adult fiction novel. But it's still very much the same type of dark fantasy tones that one can expect within Coraline. I mean, it's a delightful tale. And like I said, if you're able to separate the art from the artist, it's definitely worth reading. It has the charm that Neil Gaiman had become known for back when he was still writing novels and kicking them out. Anyways, moving on from the U.S. limited edition, we're going to head over to the U.K. limited edition published by Headline. Now, this one has two separate editions. I only have one in which I'm going to showcase here. I do not own the other one. The other one, I believe, is slipcased as well. It's limited to, I think, 1,000 copies. It's just a plain cloth book. It doesn't have sprayed edges or anything. But then there's this one, which is 260 copies, which has quarter bound in leather there with the blue sprayed edges. Now, this one is, I guess you can call it illustrated, but it's not like really illustrated. It has these strange clear pages. I'll show you one in just a second, like this, that, split up the novel. So it's not really illustrated in a traditional sense, unless you're like, hey, I want a nice little a clear slide, a projector film to separate the pages. But what this edition does have that the other ones don't, which the other editions don't, is some bonus content in the back. It has the regular acknowledgments, and then it has actual handwritten manuscripts from Neil Gaiman as he was working on the novel. But wait, there's more. There's also Creating the World of the Ocean at the End of the Lane, a conversation with Neil Gaiman, which is a pretty lengthy interview that was done with the author back in the day as they delved into the world. And I have to say, I mean, like I said, I mean, I am disgusted with the accusations and the stories of who was once one of my favorite authors. But he does do a remarkable job with the world building, which I have to hand it to him. There's a great quote from the studio on Apple TV where they say, why do all the perverts make the best films? And I guess that kind of applies, unfortunately, to the novel here as well. Moving on. As obligatory with any other Neil Gaiman title, you did get your obligatory Easton Press edition, which features the gilded page edges, the leather binding. It's pretty much in line with any Easton Press title. Of course, it comes with a certificate of authenticity. It comes with a note about the ocean at the end of the lane, which just kind of gives you a little bio, a little synopsis of the novel itself. The contents are identical to any other edition you can find trade edition wise. It just has, that Easton Press touch to everything. Nothing really to, write home about there. But then that brings us to what is, in my opinion, the best edition, which I'm going to showcase in two different types here. That being this guy. This is the Deluxe edition, published by Headline over in the UK again, illustrated by Elise Hurst. It came originally as a signed and numbered edition here in a nice slipcase. It did eventually get a paperback release. And this thing is jam-packed with illustrations. For example, look at the first edition. It's got a larger trim size than the first edition. But look at the actual widths. It's nearly twice as long. You're going from about 180 pages in the first edition to about 320 in this beast of a volume. Elise Hurst just went absolutely all out. As far as the numbering goes, I don't think the book itself... Well, the book itself is numbered. Okay. The book itself is signed by Gaiman and Hurst, but it also comes with an art print that is also signed by Hurst and numbered. I mean, the end papers themselves are illustrated, and then the book itself is just disgustingly illustrated. There isn't a single page of this that doesn't have some sort of like doodle or illustration working its way around the text. Sometimes you have a full page illustration and the text is white text on a black background. It just goes all out. I can't show you all of the illustrations in this. It would take far too long. But this, in my opinion, when it comes to like talking about illustrated books, this is how you do it. Just absolutely cram this thing. I don't know how long Elise Hurst spent working on this volume, but her love for this volume absolutely seeps through on every single page. I love her darker style. I mean, it works really well. It's obviously done with a black and white style, so you don't have to worry about, changing it from full color to grayscale within the pages. It's just masterfully done. It's just, wow. There is an edition to own, in my opinion, this is the one to get. And I believe you'd have to go to the secondary market, but like I said, it shouldn't be too costly on the secondary market, at least not for the paperback version, which I'll show you in a second. But you are getting the absolute most bang for your buck. So without being able to show you every single illustration, we are going to move on. Anyways, it did get a smaller paperback release. This particular one that I got was for Independent Bookshop edition back in the day. I got it from, I got it from the Portobello Bookshop, which has the same contents, but it also has a little letter from Neil Gaiman, which is signed by Neil Gaiman on the bottom there. The contents are the same. It's not going to be quite the same quality as the hardcover edition because you are, downsizing it to paperback. It is a little bit cheaper paper, but you are still getting a crap ton for your bang for your buck. But last but certainly not least, coming through the publication timeline, we get to this guy, which has one of the coolest enclosures in my collection. This is the edition from LitJoy. Now, LitJoy had partnered with Neil Gaiman, and in the course of their partnership, they had done 3 titles. This being the 3rd title. They did Stardust, they did Coraline, and they did Ocean at the End of the Lane. And X comes with this nice little card talking about it, saying, hey, we look forward to sharing more books in the Neil Gaiman and LitJoy book collection. But then the accusations happened, and no more books happened. Like, Neverwhere was so close. I'm hoping whoever the artist was for Neverwhere got their money's worth and didn't get, shafted on that, because the book was right there, so close to being done and released. And then, they pulled the plug on that. And they slash and burned. You can't find evidence of these volumes on LitJoy's site anymore. These are illustrated by, this one's illustrated by Nick Henderson. It does have some sprayed edges there. It was done in a signed and unsigned edition. The signed one came with the slipcase. The unsigned one, you had to buy the slipcase separate. It's a very nice edition. It's smaller, like the original trade release, and it does have lots of little doodles by Henderson throughout. Little toast there. There's the car. There are some full page illustrations that you will see further on. Little knickknacks. So you do have some full page illustrations as well. But I love the little doodles kind of worked in throughout. LitJoy really absolutely knocked it out of the park with all 3 of their editions. Like I said, it's a damn shame that Gaiman, is who he is and really burned that bridge quickly, because I would have loved to have seen what LitJoy would have done with more volumes had the, opportunity arose. But they chose to sever ties, which, all the power to them. All the power to them with that. You can do what you want to do. And I don't think we're probably going to see any other editions from the Ocean at the End of the Lane, because, as I mentioned, he kind of slash and burned his entire output with the accusations of his actions. I'm not going to talk about those here. I'm just trying to focus on the book itself, which I already had in my collection. And you wind up with an absolute crap ton of the Ocean at the End of the Lane. It also got further adapted into a stage show over in the UK. I'm unfortunately never going to be able to... I highly doubt anyone's going to bring that show on tour, which is a damn shame, because it got stunning reviews. It got a lot of praise back in the day, back in, I think, 2019 is when they first put it on. It was one of those things I was really hoping would tour. Probably not going to happen. you're probably not going to get a chance to see that play in its full glory. Same thing with the film rights. He had sold film rights. That's obviously probably not going to happen here. They cut various editions. They cut the LitJoy editions. They ended the Anansi Boys graphic novel, comic book that was coming along. You know, they really cut ties with him across the board, which is understandable. But anyways, if you are looking for like I said, if you are looking for lack of a better word, delightful read of dark fantasy and growing up and coming of age stories, and you're able to separate the art from the artist, you can, by certainly all means, give The Ocean at the End of the Lane a try. If you don't want to give any money towards Neil Gaiman, go to the secondary market, because then you're giving your money towards somebody who perhaps owned a copy and doesn't want to own their copy anymore. There are plenty of editions out there for you to choose from, and if you buy it on the secondary market, he's not getting your money. But if you want to completely steer clear of Neil Gaiman, I totally understand as well. But I figured, hey, I have these editions floating around in the bookshelves, so I'm like, I might as well show it to you here. Anyways, if you stuck around for all 16 minutes here, thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I do at least one book review a week. Plenty of unboxing videos in between here and there, and book comparison videos whenever I can, much like this one. So thank you again for watching, and we'll see you around next time.